Well, after a long 2 years, Game of Thrones is finally back. What's up, guys? I don't usually do television episode reviews, but Game of Thrones happens to be my favorite TV show, and it's probably at least half of you guys' favorite TV show, if not more. It's just such a deep, layered, complex show. There's so many great characters. I mean, like, each of these characters could hold their own in their own feature film or TV show. It's that good. So if you've never seen Game of Thrones, then you definitely should check it out. It's, like I said, one of the best TV shows ever. This will be a spoiler review. Usually if I'm gonna do a TV recap, it's gonna be spoilers. So if you've never seen Game of Thrones, you might not want to watch this. But, you know, every year we watch, like, the seasons past. And I've watched all the seasons leading up to this season probably a couple times over the last couple years. And, you know, it's crazy to see how far we've come, because in that first season, you know, you had everybody together. You had the Lannisters coming to meet the Starks for the first time. You had Bran falling from that the high rise when Jaime pushed him down. You know, and in that first season, it was the line was drawn in the sand of who was good guys and who was bad guys. And then as the seasons went along, we started realizing that who we think is the bad person, like Jaime Lannister, for instance, this was a very layered character. And who would have thought that by, like, season 3, we're rooting for Jaime Lannister? He's actually not as bad as you would think. You know, these are characters that have so many layers to them, and that is because of George R. Martin. The guy just knows how to write characters, and then he makes you love those characters, and then he kills those characters. That's one of the big reasons why Game of Thrones is so good. But at the beginning of this episode, it opens up kind of like the very first episode opened up, with this small child. You know, he sees this army approaching Winterfell, and so he's walking around, and it's filmed much in the same way that Bran was running around in the very first episode. You know, and by the end of that episode, Bran gets knocked out of that freaking window. So in a way, this scene, it kind of brings us back full circle to the first season. Even the musical cue in that scene kind of seems similar. But then when we see that army coming up, you know, it's actually Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen. And right away, just to get this out of the way, this episode was not an action-packed episode. This was setting the stage, and I wouldn't have wanted it any other way. I expected this to be setting the stage. There could have been a good action sequence in this, but I'm kind of glad there wasn't, you know, because bringing Daenerys Targaryen to Winterfell is just interesting enough as it is. Because once she gets there, there's a lot of things that are going to happen. You know, first off, Sansa. You know, people in the North are stubborn as it is, so Sansa, she's not going to be quite accepting of Daenerys Targaryen. And also, everybody's questioning why Jon Snow, he bent the knee and he relinquished his crown. So, you know, he gave way to Daenerys to be the queen of the Seven Kingdoms. But, you know, that whole opening sequence in Winterfell was really great because, you know, you had a lot of catching up to do with characters like Bran. Jon runs into Bran for the first time. He sees Arya for the first time. Arya sees Gendry for the first time. Sansa sees Tyrion Lannister for the first time since season 4, I think. So yeah, there's so much that went on and so much that had to be set up in that first sequence. And then we could start moving forward. You know, and really that's what this episode was. It was just to set everything into motion, get all these feelings out. Like, you know, when Daenerys, she's talking to Sam, and Sam finds out that Daenerys killed his parents. That was a really good scene. And it's one of those scenes that you probably wouldn't even think about because, you know, that scene where his parents died was such a quick little scene that you could easily forget about. So I love that the writers, they left no stone unturned. Everything was addressed that needed to be addressed at this point. And then the scene with Euron Greyjoy and he meets up with Cersei. The guy is hell-bent on, you know, having a queen. And I love that line where Cersei tells him that go get yourself a whore. You have to earn a queen. Cersei is one of the most interesting and most villainous characters in the whole series, and she is perfection. There's so many seasons where I just can't stand Cersei, but you know, she's like Joffrey. If Joffrey wouldn't have been in the show, it wouldn't have been Game of Thrones. So the villains are just as important as the heroes, and a lot of the times the villains actually win. And Cersei is so selfish that she pretty much puts the fate of mankind at risk because of her own personal needs. She really kind of hates Daenerys Targaryen so much that she's willing to completely screw her over. Also, there was a nice little reunion between Arya and the Hound. You know, and I love that Arya, she really stood her ground, because the Hound was like, "You left me for dead." And she said, "I stole from you too." That's who Arya is as a character. As far as like character arcs, I love Arya's arc throughout the whole series the most. This is a character that has went through so much, and I've enjoyed every step of her journey. And she really is just a lethal, she's a pretty small person, but she's deadly as hell. And I think that's part of the reason why we love Arya so much too. She's not like the Hound. She's not like this massive giant of a person. You know, she kind of represents, kind of like Tyrion does intellectually, represents the smaller but more gifted person. Arya has to use her wits about her to win in a fight, because obviously she's really small. Also, Theon Greyjoy redeems himself a little bit. He comes and he saves his sister. Theon is another character that I find so interesting. Really frustrating, actually, because, you know, he has never been able to really find himself throughout this whole thing. And then he has his manhood literally taken from him in season 3. And so, since season 3, he has pretty much just been a shell of a person, you know, up until now. And now we're starting to see a little bit of Theon Greyjoy from the first season. He's finally starting to come back. And he is the one character that I definitely want to see regain face. And ultimately, he wants to go back and he wants to redeem himself and help the Starks. So I'm glad they're going that direction with this. And then finally, the big thing we have to talk about is the big revelation that Jon Snow finds out who he really is. He is Aegon Targaryen. He is the true heir to the throne of the Seven Kingdoms. And that is going to make for a really interesting turn of events throughout the rest of the season. Jon and Daenerys are two different types of leaders. Jon puts everybody else before himself. Daenerys is a great leader. She's proven herself up to this point, but she puts the crown above everything, whereas Jon puts the people above everything. So these two are definitely going to butt heads, you know, now that he knows who he really is. And by the way, that he just had, you know, he's been bonking his aunt. Can you imagine all the shit that's going through that guy's head right now? So I'm really looking forward to the next episode and ultimately to the rest of this season. It's sad that we only have 5 episodes left. And, you know, I know there's going to be some like spin-off seasons here and there after this, but nothing's going to compare to, you know, the feast that is Game of Thrones. Also, didn't really talk about Tormund and finding that little warning from the Night King. That was an interesting little sequence. But yes, so much great stuff is to come. And I hear there's like the big battle's going to be in episode 3. A lot of great stuff to come. Anyway, guys, that is my episode recap. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this episode. Did you want more action, or did you like that they were just kind of setting the stage for what's to come? Also, guys, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day and on Fridays. We do Free For All Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.